If you like what we do here on Skiba News Nation, please like and subscribe, and also share with others so that we can grow the biggest truth-seeking community on the internet. Huge shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. We couldn't do this show without you, so I just wanted to say thank you. And if you want to help support us, go to patreon.com/Skiba News Nation.
What it costs. I want to know what the truth is. And I hope that people, my son, anybody, if my name comes up, whether you like me, whether you agree with me or not, at least you can respect the fact that he's on a quest for truth. He's on a quest for truth.
Welcome to Skiba News Nation, bringing you unfiltered views, news, interviews, discussions, and more. And now, here's your host, Jeremiah Skiba, award-winning musician and son of Rob Skiba.
Thank you for doing this. How do you pull this out? Frightening. This is not how decent people behave. This is not how people who want to be president behave.
You know, there's not many people watching anyway. So.
Is there anything you regret?
This is sort of the last gasp.
I know you believe that Mr. Trump will be a better president of the United States.
That's what we're talking about.
Total disaster. What are you going to do about it?
Let's skip over that.
But he's going to win?
They're overwhelmingly popular with the American people. Look, I never thought that would happen. Never, 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 never. If it fails here, Katie bar the door.
We'll see.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Finish him.
They have a horrible candidate who's a horrible president. They make up things constantly because a lot of people say that Obama's running the country, not Biden, because he's sleeping all the time. Very few people, maybe almost nobody, can do what I do. So here's the story. Don't associate me with the mental midget that you portray. We're going to make America great again.
Hey, Skiba News Nation family. Welcome to episode 93 of Skiba News Nation, your weekly source to the latest news, controversial topics, conspiracies, forgotten history, and so much more. I'm your host, Jeremiah Skiba, and today we're going to be talking about the WEF announcement. Nostradamus predicts the Antichrist, SNL skit that was shut down, the riots in France, how our government colluded with big tech, NEAA copies Dwight Schrut, Satanists in Florida, cat serial killer, an all-new Opus corner, and this week for History's Mysteries, we'll be talking about the conspiracy theory that nobody talks about, the conspiracy behind the assassination of Senator Huey Long, proof Dr. Weiss was a patsy, our cats aliens, and the Skiba News Nation hotline voicemails, memes, and much more. Stay awake, not woke, subscribe, and stay tuned.
Hello, everyone. I am alive and living, just as Jeremiah introduced me as. I'm a living person.
I was hoping so, man. We didn't see you last week. We weren't in studio. I was like, man, I hope he's not being held captive or anything. But I know you're alive.
Yeah. Tribulation is promised as long as you stand strong to your beliefs, even when you're tickled by the tickle monster or held up by your feet over a giant chasm of fire. You know, you must endure.
Right on, brother.
Anyways, yeah, man, how you doing?
I'm doing well, getting excited for the Beartaria Festival, or Beartaria Times National Festival. Even though people feel differently about it, we're gonna go there and report on it, so it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, you know, when I see a bunch of people who have an opinion strongly against or strongly for something, I always like to think, judge a tree by its fruit. And you can tell by the community that is built around different topics, homesteading, family, attacking the world and the lies and spellcraft that are dished out to us in bulk, you know? I think that's when you can judge a tree and see the people and the fruit that a community brings is to me what's most telling about what that community represents. And this goes across the board for, you know, political topics, religious topics, you know, a variety of different things you can apply this concept to. But that's what I would encourage people to do. You know, look into what is the purpose of a community? What is their motto or their goal? And if you can see through the surface layer of you know, how something is outwardly represented versus how it is inwardly, I think that's really telling. So,
all right, man. Well, you got some great current news for me today?
Absolutely. Let's
all right,
get
looking
into
forward
it.
to it.
All right, guys. So this week we have kind of a video montage for you with some interesting themes that I think you might find valuable. So, Opa, go ahead and hit that first clip, and Jeremiah, we can discuss it.
Wearable devices. So these are brain sensors that are starting to be embedded in everyday devices, but until now have been a number of niche companies that really have focused on mindfulness and meditation. The use of, for example, brain sensors that can pick up electrical activity in the brain at a pretty low resolution, but advances in AI have both improved what the signal is that can come from the brain and enabled the miniaturization of those products. As a lot of the major tech companies start to invest in these brain sensors, it's a huge, I think, untapped market in many ways of integrating them into everyday devices. These are earbuds or watches or headphones and the soft cups around the ears. Many of those products are hitting the market this year, and others are hitting them within the next 2 years, such that people can listen to music, a phone call, etc., while having those devices in ears. Initially, what they will be capable of doing is very high-level brain state reading. Things like, are you tired? Are you paying attention? Is your mind wandering? Are you happy or sad? They maybe enable interaction like up, down, left, right for interaction with other technologies. And they're being embedded into things like virtual reality headset.
All right, so keep that advancement in technology in mind as we watch this next video, and listen carefully to some of the things this woman associates with the prophetic vision of Nostradamus and his foresight into the Antichrist figure, and the very technology that we just watched in that previous video. Go ahead and open and play this next clip.
Nostradamus saw in his future 3 men that he called antichrists. One was Napoleon, the second one was Hitler, and the third one is the one that is to come, who is said to be the worst of all because he will learn from the mistakes of the others. A very dangerous person. He didn't like the term Antichrist. He said it was a Christian term and it was not exactly what he meant. But he said if you think of Christ as representing people, humanity, then Antichrist is someone who does terrible things against humanity, against people. And it can be the type of personality like Genghis Khan or Attila the Hun, the type that doesn't care anything about what it's doing, it only wants power. So this is what he meant by an Antichrist. But the third one, he gave us a great deal of information about him because he wanted us to do something to stop the man. He said, in the Bible, in the book of Revelation, and other books in the Old Testament, the people saw the same things that he saw, the prophets did. They only put them in their symbolism they could understand in their time, but they all saw the same thing. And that the man he refers to as the Antichrist is the number 666 in the book of Revelation, called the beast. Of course, he said 666 also refers to his connections with computers. So there's a lot more to it. But he has been predicted as far back as Bible times. So he said he has a destiny to fulfill. He has to come, but after he comes, what happens after that is in the hands of mankind. Do we allow it to go through the worst case scenarios, or can we lessen it? That's the point. But the man is alive now, and he has his destiny to fulfill. You must remember that this, in the beginning, this man will appear as a savior, the man with all the answers, the man with the golden tongue. This will how he will make his conquests in the beginning. But he said, you must remember he's not what he appears to be. He's the wolf in sheep's clothing. because by the time people realize what is happening, then everything will all come out. We were told in 1995, if you were watching, you become aware of these people and what they are doing. And of course, I get lots of mail from people trying to tell me who they think the Antichrist is. But a lot of the people they have told me about, I think, are members of the group. They're very rich, but I don't think they are the Antichrist because they don't fit all of the other criteria.
Wow. So Opa was asking me what was up with the thing on the right because it was so visually satisfying to watch those clips. And I think that's a way that they can get around the algorithm, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, whenever you distort some of this footage, you can sometimes trick the system, whether it's the audio or the visuals. However, I will let everyone know some of the most interesting information and media being put out there, if it's actually on point and really breaks down the current paradigm, it's very likely to have been taken off the internet, banned, or censored far, far before any wandering eyes might stumble across that content. And so while we might be able to cover interesting stories and news topics here, some of these topics that really focus in on the really matter-of-fact nature of what's going on in the world, then that's when you really see the censorship comes down. So for the really good stuff, you got to really be on your toes. But
Well, I think that was really smart what they did. I mean, to outsmart the algorithm. I know TikTok's been pretty crazy, but yeah, this stuff sounds crazy, man. Like insane.
Well, with that same train of thought, check out this next clip. What'd you think about that last comment? They made the bullets that shot JFK.
Well, they also made the bullets that's going to be getting into my history. It's a story that nobody really talks about anymore, and bullets that killed a lot of people who are speaking truth. I mean, I feel like a lot of like the last clip, they're censoring it because they don't want you to hear it. So they censor Lee Harvey Oswald, they censor all these other people. You know, it's crazy, man.
Oh yeah, well, I mean,
I'm surprised that made it to air on SNL.
yeah, it was taken down and put aside very quickly, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean they were pretty spot on, I would say.
All right, well, Opal, go ahead and hit that next clip for us.
Alrighty guys, look, you gotta watch this video all the way to the end for all this information to come together. This is kind of a follow-up video to the video I did on July 5th, the one you see on your screen right there. And family, as we go through this video, ask yourself this question: is this a coincidence or is this the Most High God? So what we will be doing today is looking at the path of the April 8, 2024 Great American Solar Eclipse and the path it traveled. Now guys, a lot of significant things have happened since the April 8th solar eclipse, and these things are happening in locations that saw totality or near totality during the April 8th solar eclipse, which many people believe that April 8th solar eclipse may have been the sign of Jonah. So family, check this picture out you see on your screen right here. To the left, you see the path of the April 8th solar eclipse and the path it traveled. And to the right, you see the latest projected path of the record-breaking hurricane Beryl. Beryl will travel the same path the solar eclipse traveled. What is the odds of that? And family, these are the latest projected paths for the storm. It's expected to make landfall by Monday, and it could actually be a category 1 or 2 when it makes landfall. And remember, it's looking like it's going to travel the same path the solar eclipse did. And if you remember a few days ago, this storm broke records for being the earliest category 5 storm in the hurricane season. Do you think it's a coincidence that this storm's going to follow the eclipse path? Let me know in the comment section below. Now we know that Beryl is the authorized version of the Hebrew word Tarshish. And we know that Tarshish is where Jonah tried to flee. But a huge storm come and he ended up in Nineveh where God wanted him to go. So remember, Beryl also means Tarshish. And we know that the April 8th Great American Solar Eclipse traveled through 7 towns and cities by the name of Nineveh and happened under the whale constellation. That's why a lot of people believe that that solar eclipse may have been the sign of Jonah. And remember, it was a huge storm that messed up Jonah's plans, and now we got Beryl, which was a Category 5 and broke records, and it's going to follow the eclipse path. Family, is this confirmation that that eclipse could have been the sign of Jonah? I mean, of all names, why call it Beryl? You know what I mean? But family, check this out. There's been other things happening in locations that saw totality or near totality during the April 8th solar eclipse. One of them being massive heat waves that are breaking records right and left. In locations that saw totality during the eclipse, 27 heat records have already been broken since April 8th. And if you remember, the 2023 and 2024 solar eclipse, where they crossed was Corpus Christi, which means body of Christ. Look, they're under excessive heat warning. And it's a very strong possibility that when Hurricane Beryl makes landfall in the United States, it could hit Corpus Christi first. What's the odds of that? And other areas in the United States that saw the solar eclipse also are under excessive heat warnings. And family, I don't think that's a coincidence at all. Look at this headline from 3 weeks ago, and remember, Little Rock, Arkansas was in the path of totality. Little Rock sees record temperatures ahead of the start of summer. And family, there's many headlines on the internet of the same thing in different cities that saw the eclipse. But family, there's much more. Listen to all of this. Since the April 8th eclipse, these things have happened. In areas that saw totality during the eclipse, including Houston, there's been massive storms and flooding. Colleges in the path of totality of the eclipse have been doing protests, anti-Israel protests, and so much more, family, and none of it is a coincidence. And family, there's been a lot of other stuff that's happened in the path of totality of the eclipse. If you know of any other things, drop them in the comment section below. But I truly believe that April 8th solar eclipse was a warning to the United States of America. And what we're seeing right now is only the beginning of it. Family, we know by the Bible, things are going to get much, much worse.
So, what a presenter this gentleman is. Obviously, not everyone's cup of tea, but that doesn't mean there aren't some good themes covered in his breakdown there of current weather events and interesting patterns he's seen regarding the eclipse on April 8th. So, what were your thoughts, Jeremiah?
Thought it was very interesting. Definitely different. I like different, for sure. That's something I could get behind. And everybody, like and subscribe to our channel too.
Family, thank you, family.
Thank you, Skiba News Nation
family. No, I just thought it was pretty cool because he used a lot of the same lingo we do.
Yeah.
Just in his own special way, you know. So, props to that guy. All right, Opa, hit that next video. We have another interesting one that correlates with all of these topics. Now, what you're seeing here is protests and riots happening in France. After after Macron upends some constitutional processes, simply because the Conservative Party flipped the script in France. And guess what's happening now? What I think could be a foreshadow to what would happen in the U.S. if a similar event were to happen with Biden and conservative America. If anything, I think this is a great reminder of how the cities would be in the situation of civil unrest.
Yep.
All right, as you can see, some iconic scenes playing out there in France, and in response to some political shenanigans that's happened, I think it's very telling, and I think things that happen in Europe can foreshadow things that happen in other parts of the world.
Yep.
So with that said, any thoughts, Jeremiah? And then we can play this next clip.
It just reminds me of the BLM protest, kind of. The way that they were just destroying stuff, you know?
You can definitely see how roaming marauders can often intimidate people that own property in the city to make political decisions in one way or another. So,
yeah.
The French are
well, with that, what'd you have?
the French are very, very passionate people.
That's a great point. You constantly hear of the revolts happening from France against their rulers. And what's interesting there is, did you know that in France is where the idea of the ace beating the king became a concept? And not only that, but the dichotomy of the queen and the king and the royal suit in playing cards. There was an element that was popularized which empowered the people, making the ace, which is the one, stronger than the king, which what it represents is the people having power and a say over the nation that rules them. And it was kind of predicted in modern playing cards when the ace is higher than the king. But anyways, I digress. Let's play that next clip, Opa.
What is this case? What are you defending against, and why is it important?
So one of the things that was very odd during the pandemic was that if you paid any attention to social media or the media, you would get the sense that everybody agreed that lockdowns, masks, social distancing, school closures, that whole panoply of policies that we followed, that every scientist agreed. And anyone who disagreed, that there were no scientists who disagreed, and anyone who disagreed was a crank. And the thing is, that idea was a false one from the beginning. There were many scientists who disagreed with the idea that these policies had to be followed. In fact, there were alternate policies that we can talk about maybe later in the conversation. But the point is, there was a robust scientific debate, and yet the public impression that people got was that everyone agreed. It turns out the way that happened was not an organic process where all scientists talked to each other, came to an agreement, and then put forward a unified front. What happened was that the government, the US government, and turns out even the Europeans, and governments around the world, decided that they were going to create this impression. In the Murphy versus Missouri case, the Louisiana and Missouri Attorney General's offices sued the Biden administration with the allegation that they were pressuring social media companies, going to social media companies saying, if you don't listen to us, if you don't censor these people and these ideas, which I think included me, John, that if you didn't censor the people saying that masks might not work so well, especially on toddlers, that there is immunity after you get COVID, and that the vaccine mandates were tremendously destructive, that the vaccine doesn't stop you from getting and spreading COVID, that there are side effects. I mean, just a whole host of topics that are just, I think, the subject of scientific debate and certainly contention. I think I know the answer to that, but it's something that everyone else should have been able to hear. The Biden administration censored social media discussions of those ideas. The lawsuit essentially accuses the Biden administration of doing this, saying that it violates the First Amendment. And the lower courts agreed with us. The lower court judge, they characterized this whole effort as essentially the Biden administration Orwellian ministry of truth. That's the judge's words, not mine. And ordered him to stop doing it. And so right now we're waiting for the Supreme Court to decide if the preliminary injunction ordering them to stop censoring social media discussions actually does violate the First Amendment.
Will you tell me, what did the Twitter files reveal that was specific to you and the way the platform was treating you?
So I joined Twitter in August of 2021. I mean, I'm an academic at heart, John. So I would tell all my students back before in the old times that that don't join Twitter, just write your scientific papers. But then I joined Twitter in 2021, and I noticed that I mean, I got a lot of followers for an academic almost immediately. Partly I think because of the Great Barrington Declaration, and I would post things, and my followers would see it. I would get all this like sort of dopamine rush from like people liking my posts. A few people would disagree, but it was really strange to me in one sense, because what I was saying I thought was controversial, that we shouldn't lock down, we should open schools and so on, and I was surprised how little pushback there was to me on Twitter. I joined Twitter in order to reach lots and lots of people who hadn't heard of me, and I was just reaching people that had heard of me. When Elon Musk bought Twitter, he opened up the files to some journalists, including a fantastic journalist of the Free Press named Weiss. She looked my name up on the Twitter databases, and what she found was a picture of me on the Twitter database with the little orange bubble saying Trends Blacklist. Twitter had placed me on a blacklist the day I joined Twitter to make sure that only my followers saw my posts and that had no chance of others seeing my posts.
Now, the claim at the time when it came to what's happening on social platforms from, I think in many cases essentially like-minded people to myself, sort of free marketeers, is, well, private company, essentially private property, Twitter's servers. You have no right necessarily to have your message broadcast on a private company's expensive infrastructure. Unless, of course, you pay them to do it and they claim they're going to do it and then they don't. That would be a contract fraud claim. But why is this a problem? Why is it a problem that a private company is exercising discretion?
Yeah, so it's, I mean, in general, not a problem. Like, you have different social media companies with different foci, right? So you can have Nextdoor aimed at, only your neighbors can have some discussion. And you have policies, I mean, I think good policies, for instance, to eliminate child porn, abuse, threats, violence, those kinds of things. For almost any social media company, I would think, would want those. I think it is completely legitimate that these social media companies organically choose these rules. But that is not what was happening here. What was happening here was pressure and threats by the government with specific direction, forcing changes in the terms of service, putting in algorithms to identify posts that violated criticism of government policies, and done sometimes over the sort of like pushback from social media companies. Some we've read these emails where you'd see the government come and say, well, you have to take down this injury group that's having discussions on your thing. Then you'll have the social media companies come back and say, well, they're saying true things, why should we take it down? And then you'll say, well, then you'll see, like, you better take it down or else, right? So these are the way that the federal appeals judge that looked at the evidence characterized it. They made an analogy to Al Capone, like the Chicago gangster. They go to the businesses in Chicago, say, well, that's a really nice business you got there. It'd be a shame if something were to happen to it. Yeah. That was the implied threat of what the administration was doing in the context of the social media censorship. It was not an organic decision by these social media companies. I mean, in principle, if you had sort of free entry, you could have competing social media companies, but even that was suppressed. If you remember, there was a social media company called Parler that tried to enter in, I think it was like 2020, in response to Twitter, what appeared to be Twitter deciding to suppress discussions about elections and whatnot. And that was essentially taken down in ways that, I mean, I didn't realize was possible to take down. I don't believe any of that was organic. I think that government actors, both in the United States and in Europe, pressured the social media companies and attempted to and succeeded in distorting the market around social media.
First, I want to make sure that you agree with something, which is it the case in your opinion, as an academic swimming in those waters, that academia writ large has more or less carried water for the government's efforts here. Would you say that's a fair characterization?
100% that's true. If you were an academic, especially if you're a scientist, it was tremendously difficult to speak up against the government's approach to the pandemic. Even when you saw scientifically that it was wrong, that it was causing harm. I know scientists who signed the Great Barrington Declaration, you know, this thing that I wrote in 2020, almost 1 million people signed it, and tens of thousands of doctors and scientists. People lost their jobs for signing it. Academics lost opportunities for grant applications, collaborations, teaching, slots in you know, conferences. It turned out to be a tremendously oppressive environment to be an academic who opposed the lockdowns.
So what you have there presented is the collusion of the American government to censor and block the freedom of speech. And I'm really surprised not more people have covered this lawsuit. I think this is one of the greatest glaring incidents that was widely published in a timely fashion after the affront was committed. And so I'd like to see some justice in this realm of kind of corruption in our government. But with that said, let's go ahead and check out this speech that was given at the NEA, and it's almost a copy from Dwight Schrut's speech from The Office. Check it out.
Depending on us to win all the things. NEA, we have to win all the things. All the things. All the things. Our colleagues are depending on us to win all the things. Keep going, NEA. To preserve our democracy, we must win all the things. Delegates, we won't go back. We will keep going forward because we are the NEA. We are the NEA. We are the NEA.
Blood alone moves the wheels of history.
We get to do this work. We will do this work because our students are depending on us.
A never-ending fight, I say to you, and you will understand that it is a privilege to fight.
We have to win all the things. All the things.
We are warriors.
Wow.
Oh man. I thought the comparison was hilarious. But with that said, let's jump on down to Florida and find out how some Satanists are trying to infiltrate some public events. Check this out.
Satanic Temple leader, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, they're going toe-to-toe over a new law. The law allows chaplains acting as counselors into public school. Well, the group says, hey, they want to volunteer too. But Governor DeSantis is pushing back, saying the Satanic Temple isn't allowed. They don't qualify as a religion. News Nation's Xavier Walton has more on this battle. Xavier, good morning.
Hey, Brooke, good morning. Yeah, this story, you know what? It definitely grabs your attention on a Tuesday morning. You have this back and forth between Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and then the leader of the Satanic Temple. And at a certain point, it just doesn't seem real, only it is. And it starts with a new Florida law that just went into effect July 1st, House Bill 931. It allows religious chaplains to actually go into public schools as volunteers. Lawmakers say it's supposed to alleviate some of the staffing shortages. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, you know, when he signed that bill back in April, I want everybody to listen to what he had to say at this press conference.
Some have said that if you do a school chaplain program, that somehow you're going to have Satanists running around in all our schools. Just understand, we're not playing those games in Florida. That is not a religion. That is not qualifying to be able to participate in this.
All right, so the leader of the Satanic Temple got wind of what Florida's governor had to say and responded by saying this himself, and that members of his organization will be happy to volunteer in any of Florida's 67 counties. Now, DeSantis has said in the past, Satanism is not a real religion. You just heard it there. Therefore, Satanists can't really volunteer in the chaplain program because they are not qualified to participate That's all part of that new law that went into effect July 1st. Over important context, the U.S. government actually, Brooke, recognizes the Satanic Temple as a church, and that's what the leader of the Satanic Temple is actually pointing out here.
Yeah, and it's got a lot of people talking, absolutely, right? And so has the governor's office, has they said anything else, you know, to the fact that this conversation's still going on? And is this fight happening anywhere else, or is this just a Florida thing for right now?
Okay, so we reached out to the governor's office, and he responded with a link to the press conference you just heard a small snippet of. And that's what the governor had to say about that. As for that second question you asked, you know what? Let's take a look at the big picture, because it's not just Florida fighting with the Satanic Temple. It's also states like Oklahoma, Louisiana, red states using the schools to test the wall between church and state. And that's why, you know, leaders with the Satanic Temple say they are fighting for freedom of religion, all religions, in public schools. In the meantime, you know, back here in Florida, schools actually have to sign up for the chaplain program, allowing chaplains to enter the schools. So far, though, no schools have signed up. But keep in mind, you know, this went into effect a little more than a week ago. July 1st was a little more than a week ago, bro.
Yeah, so a lot could still happen here.
Alrighty.
We'll stay on top of it. Xavier Walton,
Well, now that I got you in a satanic panic, Jeremiah, let me warn you that this information may be traumatizing for good old Charlie. So if he's there, you might want to cover his kitty ears, and let's go ahead and play this next shocking clip.
All right, Charlie, cover your ears.
Well, the man in question is not only accused of hurting cats, but also dogs and humans. We spoke to him, and he had a lot to say.
A lot of the residents are accusing you of killing cats.
Yeah, I'm very much aware of that.
His name is Roger Montague, and he considers himself...
I'm the saint of San Pedro.
But people in this San Pedro community say he's the opposite of a saint.
He's a very evil man. He doesn't like people. He doesn't like animals.
Menacing. Very menacing.
On Tuesday night, we interviewed residents who accuse Roger of being a serial cat killer, allegedly shooting the animals with a crossbow and then painting these crosses all over town. What does he have against cats?
He says they're demons. They're demons of the devil.
But when we confronted Roger, he denied all of it.
So you are 100% denying that you hate cats and you're out there killing cats?
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That's the truth.
He thinks he's righteous about what he does, and he is a menace to our neighborhood.
These residents accuse Roger of walking around their neighborhood, tossing garlic into their yards.
All over the neighborhood, throwing garlic so for the dogs to, you know, it's harmful for the dogs.
And I asked him, why you hate me?
Billy Cortez says one day Roger threw garlic at him and then proceeded to attack him. These are photographs of some of his injuries. Despite all of this, Roger tells us people like him in this neighborhood.
I want you to ask all these children if they like me or the other neighbors.
The neighbors don't seem to like you. They're accusing you of tossing garlic in their backyard. Why are you doing that?
That's how we clean the city out.
That's right. Roger believes garlic and
holy water, garlic, vinegar, and bells
heal people and animals from curses.
Well, he needs to be evicted. That's what he needs to be, and maybe probably arrested for what he did to my neighbor. Bashed him on his head till it bled, you know, bleeding all over the place, throwing garlic at him.
Well, Roger was arrested for attacking his neighbor. He pled not guilty, and he does have a court hearing on July 17th. There's so much more that we did not put in the story. I mean, we could be on the story for days, Alex, Christine, but we'll wrap it up for now.
So, I guess he has figured out some ancient truth about vampires in the area he lives in, and he's trying to do the Lord's work, protecting people from vampires.
That's what I was gonna say. Vampires. Maybe he confuses dogs and cats with vampires, and he better stay out of Texas. Is all I gotta say, because Charlie is very upset with this news of this cat killer, and he's glad that he's in jail.
If you compare cats and dogs to vampires, in a way, they are similar because they absorb resources from our lives and are like parasitic in nature in a way, where they just live among us and with us. They used to have a purpose, but now instead of catching mice and chasing down game, they sleep on our porch and lick us in the face. You know,
Don't be a sympathizer, man. Don't be a animal killer sympathizer.
No, you're right. I'm just kidding. But, you know, whenever we see stories like that happening in the world, you just got to scratch your head and be like, you know, not everybody has a unbroken cookie in their head. You know, some people's cookies have crumbled, if you know what I mean.
Yep, and some of those people belong in federal prison. That's for sure.
One last story for this week. Boeing has gotten some justice. Check this out.
Boeing is pleading guilty to a criminal fraud charge tied to deadly 737 MAX crashes. According to the Justice Department, Boeing has agreed to pay a nearly $250 million fine. This is for its role in deadly crashes in 2018 and 2019, and then misleading U.S. regulators about the safety of its flight control system. However, a lawyer for victims' family says he plans to ask the federal judge on the case to reject that deal. The judge has to sign off on the plea deal for it to take effect.
Now, if you could call a fine somehow justice, then that's what Boeing got. But I think it's kind of crazy considering all the news regarding the witness that supposedly committed suicide right upon, you know, being just about to testify on all of the crazy stuff that is being hidden behind the scenes regarding this topic. But anyways, hope that interested you guys this week, and that's all. Thanks for listening.
All right, thanks for another great current news as always, Jake. And now check out this new ad from our new and improved bookstores. Check this out.
Check out our new and improved BabylonRisingBooks.com, where you can get Rob Skiba's books, bundles, DVDs, DVD-ROMs, videos, and so much more. You can even get Sheila and Jeremiah's books, so check it out now.
Hey, can we look at Charlie real quick? I think he's ready for an all-new Opa's Corner. Take it away, Opa.
Mein Hut, der hat 3 Ecken. 3 Ecken hat mein Hut. Und hat nicht 3 Ecken, dann ist es nicht mein Hut.
The strange, the bizarre, the unexpected. These are the kinds of subjects a man named Robert L. Ripley challenged us to believe it or not.
Believe it or not.
Believe it or not, you.
Wally, believe it or not.
Believe it or not.
Believe it!
You're a loony.
The shortest commercial flight in the world lasts just 57 seconds. The Loganair flight between the 2 Scottish islands of Westray and Papa Westray lasts just 57 seconds. At a distance of 1.7 miles, it's the shortest commercial flight in the world. However, because the trip is made via one of 2 8-seater planes, the exact time of the journey could take a bit longer if there are strong winds. Loganair claims it takes less than a minute in favorable winds. Believe it or not. Shakespeare's parents and children were likely illiterate. William Shakespeare remains one of the most famous playwrights and poets of all time, and while the Baird attended grammar school to master reading, writing, and Latin, it's believed that his parents and children were almost entirely illiterate. The ability to read and write wasn't necessary during the Elizabethan era, and although Shakespeare's father, John, may have had a basic level of literacy, he signed his name with a mark instead of his full name. His daughters, Susanna and Judith, are thought to be totally illiterate, although Susanna could write her signature. Believe it or not. If you tried a new variety of apple every day, it would take more than 20 years to try them all. If you're the kind of person who appreciates variety and would love to taste test a new type of apple every day of the week, then you're in for decades-long endeavor. It would take you more than 20 years to try each of the 7,500 varieties of apples in the world. Believe it or not. The remains of the inventor of the Pringles can are in a Pringles can. Frederick Bauer was the man responsible for creating the iconic Pringles can. That's why, when he passed away in 2008, his children honored his wishes to be laid to rest in one. When my dad first raised the burial idea in the 1980s, I chuckled about it, Bear's oldest son told the Times. But it turned out Bear was serious. So, after his death, his children stopped by to buy a can of Pringles while heading to the funeral. His son recalled, "My siblings and I briefly debated what flavor to use, but I said, look, we need to use the original." Believe it or not. Cotton candy was invented by a dentist. Cotton candy isn't exactly great for your teeth, and that's why it may surprise you to learn that the machine that makes this sweet treat was invented by a dentist named William Morrison. Though he looked after people's teeth for a living, in 1897 he also worked alongside confectioner John C. Wharton to create a cotton candy machine, according to National Geographic. Believe it or not. For sale, parachute, only used once, never opened. I have learned so much from my mistakes that I'm thinking of making a few more. I think my neighbor is stalking me, as she's been Googling my name on her computer. I saw it through my telescope last night. I wasn't originally going to get a brain transplant, but then I changed my mind. I am so poor, I can't even pay attention. I saw a sign that said, "Watch for children," and I thought, that sounds like a fair trade. When I was a kid, my parents moved a lot, but I always found them. My wife's cooking is so bad, the flies fix our screens. I tell you, my whole life, all I've known is rejection. When I was a kid, my yo-yo, it never came back. I was so poor, my rich aunt died. And her will, I owed her $20. I'll tell you, my kid, he drives me nuts. For 3 years now, he goes to a private school. He won't even tell me where it is. I was poor. Once on my birthday, my old man, he showed me a picture of a cake. I sat there all day trying to blow out the candles. When someone asks you a penny for your thoughts and you put 2 cents in, what happens to the other penny? The caterpillar does all the work, but the butterfly gets all the publicity.
That's true.
Isn't it a bit unnerving that doctors call what they do a practice? Dog previews. The big itch. Don't even think of scratching. This is it, Maurice. I warned you to keep your hands off of me. Ironically, Barnum's and Bailey's respective kids, Sid and Marty, both ran away one night to join corporate America. Watch it, Randy. She's on your case. Unfocused group. Hold it right there, stranger. We got us a hat check law in this town, so just take it off nice and slow. And so, as you enter the adult phase of your life, you will thank God that these past 17 years of being stuck in the ground and unable to move are finally over. Congratulations, Cicada of 2024. Now, this is a typical dwelling of a species that... Hey, all right. I think we even caught a little fellow at home. We're here, Eric. Antarctica. Bottom of the world. And please let Mom, Dad, Rex, Ginger, Tucker, me, and all the rest of the family see color. An ark! An ark, you fool! Mr. Amesworth. Calling Mr. Amesworth. If you're within the sound of my voice, Mr. Amesworth, please give us some kind of sign. A 1 and a 2. Oh, not much. Just about to dispel the old bark worse than bite myth. What should I do with these spare parts? Goldfish little brothers. Cindy, your blind date's here, and it's one of those kind with the eyes bugged way out. Unfriending. The early years. Ever since I changed Siri to a male, he's been forgetting birthdays and anniversaries. Her answer off by miles, Sheila's cow sense, was always the target of ridicule. Life on Cloud 8.
You know, Vince, this really isn't so bad. But the folks up there sure seem to live it up.
One day, Irwin knew he was just going to have to push that big button. February 22nd, 1946. Botanists create the first artificial flower. How cute, Earl. The kids have built a little fort in the backyard. Bachelor number 3. Who would you rather swallow? Mickey Mouse, Speedy Gonzales, or Rocky the Flying Squirrel? And why?
Like the dating game.
Hey, look at Red Bear. Wait, that's not real. For heaven's sakes, why don't you just return the book and pay the overdue fine?
I love this app that shows what you look like as an old person.
It's called a camera. Elevator out of order. We understand your concern, ma'am, but this just isn't enough for us to go on. Now, you find the other half of your husband, and then we've got a case.
Mr. Cummings, this is Frank Dunham in production. We got some problems, Mr. Cummings. Machine number 5 has jammed. Several large spools have gone off track. The generator's blown, and well, everything seems to be, you know what.
Cummings, haywire, and supplies. Maybe a limbo party wasn't our best idea. Hidden image from Apollo 11. McDonald's? And that concludes another OPA'S Corner.
Mein Hut, der hat 3 Ecken. 3 Ecken hat mein Hut. Und hat nicht 3 Ecken, dann ist es nicht mein Hut.
OPA'S Corner is now available on my own YouTube channel. Like, share, and subscribe.
Thank you, Opa, for another great OPA'S Corner. Now, a word from our good friend, JJ. Are you tired of living in constant pain? Do you feel like you've tried every CBD product on the market with no relief? Look no further than JJ's Natural CBD Rub. When I was diagnosed with degenerative disc disease, this was the only product that completely took my pain away. Working with JJ has been a dream come true, and his products have completely changed my life. Don't just take my word for it. Visit JJ's website, jjcbdrub.com, and read hundreds of testimonials from people whose lives have been changed by all of JJ's amazing products. And now, as a Skiba News Nation exclusive, you can get $50 off a 3-pack special of JJ's Natural CBD Rub by texting CBD to 920-382-7720. Don't suffer in silence any longer. Take control of your pain today with JJ's Natural CBD Rub. Again, text CBD to 920-382-7720 for an exclusive discount and start feeling the relief you deserve. The links are in the description below. Now, JJ has way more than just CBD rub, so I suggest going to his website, and you guys should really check it out. It's jjcbdrub.com. So, with that being said, it's time for a new History's Mysteries. So this week's History's Mysteries was submitted by a viewer and a friend named Shay, who's always on the Discord. So big shout out to him for making me aware of this story because I'd never heard about it. So the JFK assassination, let's start there. We all know Lee Harvey Oswald was a patsy. What if I told you there's a story just as crazy as that one with another patsy? For this week's History's Mysteries, that's what we're going to be talking about. And the person who was assassinated was the name of Senator Huey Long. Huey Long was nicknamed the Kingfish, was an American politician who served as the 40th governor of Louisiana from 1928 to 1932. He was a United States Senator from 1932 until his assassination in 1935. So today for History's Mysteries is about him and Dr. Carl Weiss, his assassin. So with that being said, let's play the official narrative. It's like a preview of a documentary called 61 Bullets that we can't find anywhere, but check this out.
My mother had always been very vague about it. She had told me that my father was killed in an accidental shooting, that somebody approaches, and half the time they're also thinking, ha, you're the son of an assassin.
Huey Long's a brilliant man, a brilliant politician.
He promised things that made a real difference in people's lives.
He accomplished more in his term of office than any other governor in history. But we're absolutely also sure some things he did were wrong.
Carl Weiss was a very brilliant man.
Probably one of the best educated doctors in the state of Louisiana.
He had everything to lose, a young wife and a little baby.
They were madly in love. He was my hero.
There was a lot of tension in Louisiana. There were armed soldiers and police.
People around the nation, as well as Louisiana, could see that Huey Long was snatching power and rights from the citizens of Louisiana.
He ruffled a lot of feathers.
Somebody got to kill that SOB. You'd hear that all the time. Huey knew that he was a wanted man. An official version is this. Dr. Weiss walked up to Huey Long, said not a word, and he pulled a pistol and he shot Huey.
All the bodyguards had at least 2 guns, and they emptied every gun and every bullet into Carl Weiss's body.
There are certain things that don't make any sense in this case.
There was not an autopsy of either of the parties.
If there was something to hide, people had plenty of time to coordinate their stories.
There is absolutely no proof that Carl Weiss carried the gun.
Many people wonder why a man would leave home on a Sunday night and walk into a situation that meant certain death.
If Weiss is the person who shot Huey Long, I'm not sure it's going to ever be possible to know why he did that.
I mean, I could never think of him as an assassin.
We know Huey Long is dead. We know he was shot, and that's all we know for facts.
So if anybody can find me that documentary, please email it to me. But yeah, it's just a crazy story because this very well-respected doctor just so happens to go crazy one day and shoot him. And none of the official story makes sense. And that's what we're going to be talking about in this next clip, is the official narrative and how none of it make sense at all. So check this out.
The official account of Senator Huey Long's death says that he was murdered by a lone assassin, but that official account may be wrong.
We'll not destroy the profit system. We'll not destroy the capitalistic system.
He was a superstar of Depression-era politics, a fiery speaker known as the Kingfish. His name was Huey Long.
Read in the words that was written.
At age 34, Long was elected governor of Louisiana, and he became a senator 3 years later. Long was incredibly popular because he believed in redistributing America's wealth.
No man must be allowed to have too much. No man must be allowed to have too little. Unless you limit the size of the big, it necessarily means that the small people must become more and more impoverished as time goes on.
He was a national figure, and there was serious talk of a run for the presidency in 1936. But that idea worried some people. To the rich and powerful, Long was the enemy, and he received numerous threats. Some believed Long was better dead than president. In fact, a few were convinced it was the only way to stop him.
Huey Long had a great compassion for a lot of people, but that compassion did not extend to people who crossed him. Once you crossed Huey Long, you had an enemy for life. People lost jobs, they lost businesses, they lost lands, they lost everything because of the vindictiveness of Huey Long.
Judge Benjamin Pauley of St. Landry Parish was one of the many elected officials Long targeted for political destruction. And it was Pauley's 29-year-old son-in-law, a respected doctor named Carl Weiss, who is still remembered as the man who assassinated Huey Long. Long intended to eliminate Judge Pauley's position. He had convened a special session of the state legislature. Ignoring threats against his life, Senator Long walked boldly between the State House chamber and Governor Oscar Allen's office, where history says that Dr. Carl Weiss was waiting. Dr. Weiss was killed instantly, shot more than 60 times by the bodyguards. His .32 caliber pistol was found beside him. Huey Long died 30 hours later. He was just 42 years old, and his funeral drew more than 100,000 mourners.
5 days after the funeral, an inquest concluded that Dr. Carl Weiss was the lone assassin. But now strong evidence indicates that Huey Long may have been killed accidentally and that Dr. Weiss is innocent.
On the day Huey Long was shot, Carl Weiss and his wife ate Sunday dinner at his father's house.
And how was your father the judge?
He's fine.
Carl's wife, Yvonne, was the daughter of Judge Benjamin Pauley, one of Huey Long's most outspoken critics. According to those present at dinner, Dr. Weiss's father was ranting about Long and his attack on Judge Pauley at the special legislative session. But despite his marriage to the judge's daughter, Dr. Weiss minimized Long's actions and tried to calm his father. Yet, just a few hours later, Dr. Weiss would lie dead in the state capitol, accused of assassinating Huey Long. He would leave behind his wife and a son, Carl Weiss Jr. Weiss granted us a rare interview.
Naturally, there's been a lot of interest focused on the minute-by-minute detail of my father's day, where he went, what he did, etc. He spent the afternoon at home, and then he left to visit the home of a man named Morgan, who was a patient of his, and I believe my father made a phone call from the Morgan home to make plans for the morning surgery. Thereafter, he left, and for reasons that I don't believe we'll ever know, he didn't go directly home, but stopped, and the rest is, as they say, history.
Some people believe Weiss went to the Capitol not to shoot Huey Long, but to plead his father-in-law's case.
Carl Weiss took his position outside of the governor's office. He was in plain view because he was approached by other people who knew him, who saw him there, approached him, shook hands with him, talked with him.
At the state capitol that evening, the career of Yvonne Weiss's father, Judge Benjamin Pauley, was on the line. House Bill number 1, a redistricting plan, was Huey Long's top priority.
How much longer am I have to wait for House Bill number 1 to pass?
Well, we just got started.
I am tired of Henry Poppy sitting on that judge's bench, and I thought y'all was gonna get him out tonight.
We just started working on this last night. We're getting resistance.
Y'all, you get resistance every bill you pass. That ain't no excuse no more.
We just gotta take our time.
Time?
You're pushing too hard.
I built this building faster than you boys are passing this bill. Now what's the deal here?
Huey, I don't think you understand. Look, we got a state constitution that tells us how to run things.
Tell you something about this state constitution. I am this state constitution.
3 times Weiss approached Huey Long that night, and 3 times he was brushed aside.
On another pass, Weiss was a little bit more urgent, and he told Long that he really had to talk with him, and Long, once again, said he didn't have the time to talk to Weiss.
Senator Long, can I speak with you, please? Ellen got Anderson to come over to our side.
Well, that's good, government.
Mr. Senator, can I just speak with you for a second,
I'm a little
please?
busy, son, but you just make yourself comfortable. Maybe back in just a few minutes.
Senator Long, this is very important. Mr. Senator.
history records the rest in some blue haze, really, but we're uncertain as to what happened.
People to do your jobs. You know your jobs. You know what you got to do. Why do I have to keep coming telling you what to do? No, I don't want to hear.
At 9:20 p.m., Dr. Weiss approached Long for the third and final time. The historians who are convinced that Weiss did not kill Huey Long believe happened like this.
That's why I'm doing your job for you. You understand me?
Mr. Long, I've got to talk to you.
Will you
Just
leave
one
me
second.
alone, you little pissant? He shot me. He shot me.
Long was taken to a nearby hospital. Despite his wounds, the Kingfish remained very much in charge.
Dick, okay, I won't fight you. Let's go. Come on.
Huey Long had been briefed as to who the man was who was there, who they claimed had shot him. He had been given a lot of information. Somebody had to come up with a story as to exactly what happened there, and Huey Long felt that he was the man to do it.
No matter what happens in here, you keep your mouth shut about the Capitol, you hear me? I'll do all the talking about that. Okay. All right, and you tell them other boys I said to shut the hell up. I'll do the talking about that.
All right. All right, let's put him under. Let's put him under. Come on.
Huey Long was shot around 9:20. He was operated on sometime around 11 o'clock. They went inside, found out that the colon had been punctured in 2 places. They sewed up Huey Long and then pronounced him cured.
However, the surgeons had overlooked a serious wound to the senator's kidney. A day and a half later, on September 10th, 1935, Huey Long was dead. It was the end of an era. Huey Long, the Kingfish, was gone. At the official inquest, Dr. Carl Austin Weiss was named as Long's assassin. However, some questioned that conclusion.
So that's the official story of what happened to Senator Huey P. Long, and that's not the true story. I mean, Huey Long was the OG America First politician. He was an enemy of the elites. He was outspoken. He was a lot like JFK. There are a lot of parallels, and I'm sure I'll say that several times because it's true. I mean, people wanted him dead. So what better, cover up than a patsy? This man right here, Dr. Carl Weiss. He was the patsy. And that's what we're going to be getting into with this next clip. And this next clip is about Dr. Weiss's innocence. So check this out.
Senator Huey Long of Louisiana died a day and a half after being struck down by an assassin's bullet. The man accused of firing that fatal shot was Dr. Carl Austin Weiss, who was killed at the scene. However, in the decades since, some researchers have come to believe that Dr. Weiss was innocent.
Most assassins leave a paper trail. They leave some hint as to what they did and why they did it. There was nothing like this. Carl Weiss was not a man who was preparing to shoot anybody, and at that dinner at noontime on September the 8th, he was a model of propriety, and really he was in complete control of himself. Carl Weiss was a father of a 3-month-old son. He was making provisions for the future. He spent a very normal Sunday, and there was nothing to incline anybody to believe that he had this on his mind. I think it was altogether incomprehensible that he could have been the perpetrator of this crime.
No one disputes that Carl Weiss owned a gun, a .32 caliber pistol, which he kept in the glove compartment of his car. However, historian Ed Reed believes that he has uncovered evidence that Huey Long was not shot by that gun. The official version of the operation makes no mention of a bullet being retrieved from Long's body, but Reed heard a conflicting story from a relative of one of the surgeons.
All right, got a bullet here. Indeed. It looks like about a .38 caliber, wouldn't you say, Dr. Loring? Yes, I would. All right.
During the operation, there was a .38 caliber bullet removed from Huey Long. This is significant because Carl Weiss was alleged to have been carrying a .32, but the bodyguards were carrying 38s and 45s. So therefore, if a .38 was removed, and I believe it was, then that could not have come from Carl Weiss, or his gun, certainly.
Within half an hour of the shooting, Dr. Weiss had been tentatively identified as Long's assailant. Weiss's brother and cousin heard the rumors and went straight to the Capitol. There, they found Weiss's car. Weiss's brother and cousin discovered that the doctor's gun was missing from the glove compartment. To this day, no one can be sure who removed the gun from the car. Elois Skyhook, a security guard at the state capitol that night, told Ed Reed that it was not Carl Weiss.
He told me that he felt that that gun was a throwdown gun, that one of the bodyguards had gone out to the car that Carl Weiss had driven up in, had gotten that pistol, and had thrown it next to the body.
Reed believes his theory is supported by Weiss's own actions inside the Capitol.
If Carl Weiss was actually at the state capitol to kill Huey Long, he had a perfect opportunity that passed. Huey Long had his back turned to Carl Weiss. It would have been very easy for Carl Weiss to shove his pistol up against Long's body, emptied out the magazine, and then made his escape. Because of the rumors that had been flying that there would be an attempt made on Huey Long's life that night. Because of that, fuses were very, very short. Something that happened that night, perhaps Carl Weiss hit Huey Long. Perhaps he just moved too fast, and I think the bodyguards, who were without any training whatsoever in security, I think they overreacted. I think the bullets that entered Huey Long's body were the bullets that came from the bodyguards' guns.
Reed offers up what he believes is one final piece of evidence. When Huey Long was admitted to the hospital, his lip was bleeding.
Notice I said shut the hell up. All right. I'll do all the talking about that. Your lip, Huey. That's where he hit.
Was Long referring to his encounter with Carl Weiss? According to a sworn affidavit from a witness, he most certainly was. In hindsight, there seems to be considerable doubt about who actually shot Huey Long. But at the time, it was treated as an open and shut case. No one was allowed to investigate further, and all official records, as well as Dr. Weiss's gun, disappeared a few years after the inquest and remained missing for more than half a century.
So very interesting, very much like JFK and all the stuff that's being hidden from us that we can't see. For whatever reason, they keep saying that they're going to put it out, but they don't. I mean, the story gets crazier and crazier, and there's evidence. I mean, the .38 caliber bullet that came out of Huey Long's body did not come from Weiss's gun. There were eyewitnesses that said that Weiss didn't kill Long. It's just insane. For this next clip, I should say, we're going to be talking about the facts of the assassination of Huey Long and the forensic evidence that proves Dr. Carl Weiss did not kill Huey Long. So check this out.
That is, until Professor James Starrs, a forensic expert, began researching the case.
In trying to find the gun and the state police files, I decided that the police were the prime suspects that should be looked at, starting from the top down, and I literally made a laundry list of the individuals with Louis F. Geer at the top of that list.
Louis F. Geer was the head of the Criminal Bureau of Investigation in Louisiana at the time of Huey Long's death. Years after Geer died, a researcher hired by Starrs found Geer's will in the public records.
There was a listing in the inventory of miscellaneous files listed as no value. Now, being a lawyer as well as a scientist, I realized that inventories of estates do not list items of no value. And I said to myself, those are the state police files.
Geer's will listed something else of interest: Carl Weiss's gun.
My father's handgun was in fact in existence, and its location was eventually traced to a safe deposit box in downtown New Orleans.
With the gun were several unused .32 caliber bullets and one spent .32 caliber slug. At first it was assumed that this was the bullet that killed Huey Long, but ballistics tests showed it did not come from Dr. Weiss's gun. The obvious questions were, where did it come from and why was it kept with the gun? Some believe that the answer would be found with the official state files, which were also recovered by Starr's investigation. However, the Louisiana State Police reviewed those files and concluded that there is nothing in them that changes the original ruling.
It's my opinion that Dr. Weiss was the assassin in this case. We believe, from a law enforcement standpoint, that he had motive. We believe he had opportunity, and we believe he had the means to do the job. And we know that he was there.
If I were asked whether my father shot Huey Long today, I would say categorically no, he didn't.
Colonel Francis Grievenberg, head of Louisiana State Police during the early 50s, was among those who believed that Long's bodyguards killed him accidentally, and Grievenberg was in a position to know. He claimed that two state troopers who were eyewitnesses to the shooting told him Dr. Carl Weiss was unarmed when Long was shot. The state troopers confirmed that after the bodyguard shot Long, they planted a gun on Weiss. Despite this information, the official position of the Louisiana State Police is still Dr. Carl Weiss killed Huey Long.
Like I said earlier, Dr. Weiss was a patsy, and he had a lot of things in common with Lee Harvey Oswald. Another thing that Dr. Weiss and Lee Harvey Oswald have in common is that they're both from Louisiana. So it's very strange how all these parallels are a coincidence. It's way too much to be a coincidence, in my opinion. Me being a true crime buff, I know that in every exoneration case, there has to be an alternative suspect for them to pardon or for them to release a suspect. So with that being said, there is an alternative suspect, and it's in this next clip, so check this out.
When Huey went to the United States Senate, he still controlled the governor's office through Oscar Allen. And what he would do is get Allen to call special sessions of the legislature to enact new laws. But what those laws were created to do was to build his power base in Louisiana. There were a few holdouts, a couple of parishes, most notably St. Landry Parish was a place that he had never been able to really gain control of, and there was a judge in St. Landry Parish, Judge Pavey.
It was widely known that Huey Long had opposed my grandfather, Judge Pavey, politically, as Judge Pavey would not support him for governor, and the United States Senator when he ran for Senate.
And so Huey, in that September 1935 special legislature session, which is the reason he was in town, had gerrymandered, in other words, he had redrawn the judge's district, and he had redrawn it in such a way that the next election for judge, Pavey would be guaranteed to lose. Judge Pavey's son-in-law was a doctor in New Orleans named Dr. Carl Weiss. The story goes, although this is certainly disputed, that Dr. Weiss had heard about the gerrymandering of his father-in-law's district, but even worse, he had heard rumors that Huey Long was going to start spreading negative word about not only his father-in-law, but his father-in-law's family.
We had a cousin by the name of Dudley Gilbo, who was an elected official in the Louisiana legislature. Some of the people in my family feel that Dr. Weiss was at the Capitol that day to see Dudley Gilbo. Now, also, Carl Weiss's home was on, I want to say 4th Street, which is probably about a block, 2 blocks from the Capitol. Literally, his ride home from Our Lady of the Lake Hospital would have taken him in front of the Capitol. Some of the testimony that came out was that Weiss approached Huey, and he said, "Get out of the way, you little pissant," and Weiss hit him in the mouth.
His meritorious rise to fame and power that carried him as far as the United States Senate ended in the state capitol building in Baton Rouge, just as he himself had prophesied. This was his assassin, Dr. Carl A. Weiss, Jr., a prominent Baton Rouge eye specialist. Weiss, shown here in an earlier pleasure cruise, was reputed to have met Long in the Capitol and fired a fatal Luger bullet into his side.
My family always felt that they just felt they knew Carl. They knew Dr. Weiss so well, and they loved him, and they just felt that he was not the kind of person that would do that kind of act. It was just beyond belief.
More than a half century after the assassination, the last will and testament of a Louisiana State Police captain,
and the exhumation of the presumed assassin's body brought to light new evidence that turned history upside down.
We knew about it, but nobody in the family talked about it. It was like the hidden elephant.
Oh, she gave me very evasive answers. She said he'd been killed in an accident.
He had, you know, what a lot of people thought was going to be the perfect life. He had a beautiful wife, a young son, and that the family just felt that there was no way he could have done it. And that's what we kind of lived with for years. Huey was heavily armed, a bodyguard. They were all armed, so everybody felt that if anybody who would go to perform this kind of act was walking into a death sentence.
One thing that brought it very dramatically to my attention, that was that Life magazine cover that showed my father's body riddled with bullets. That she couldn't shield me from. And that probably was, in a way, it kind of turned me off, because sometimes when things are too gory, you don't even want to think about them.
I was trying a case in Gulfport, Mississippi, United States Federal Court, and the judge in the case was Lansing Mitchell. After the case, everybody was sitting down. Before he walked out of the courtroom, he pointed at me and says, "Pavey, get in my office." I said, "Well, this is unusual." So I walked in his office, I sat down, and he says, "Carl Weiss." I said, "Well, that was my uncle. That was my mother's oldest sister's husband." He said, "Weiss didn't kill Long." And I was kind of taken back, and I said, "How do you know?" And he said, "I wrote Captain Gear's will." Gear was the head of the state police at the time. And I said, "Well, what?" He says, "In the will," he said, "I leave to my daughter the gun that I removed from Dr. Weiss's car after the incident in the Capitol." And then, of course, kind of on a dual path, in addition to getting the gun back, they were making the preparations to exhume Dr. Weiss's body, and they were going to send it up to the Smithsonian and see if he, had any kind of narcotics, drugs in him, which would have made him behave irrationally.
I was there when they did exhume my father's body at the cemetery in Baton Rouge.
It was like a rain on a tin roof when they emptied the contents of the casket out, because there were so many bullets that had been left in my father's body.
One of the things that we found was that there was a broken bone in the hand, the left hand of Dr. Weiss. There was a entry wound in the skull, which essentially right below the left eye. And then I think there was also some fractured in the forearms, which would indicate that his hands were up when they were shooting, or prior to the shooting starting. But that was some of the things that were, and of course there were no drugs or anything in the body that would, we felt would make him behave this way or act inappropriate. But a lot of people felt that, especially in the family, that it was just enough to say, hey, wait, maybe you didn't do it. And that's pretty much what it's been since then.
That's what I got for Huey Long and Dr. Weiss, and it's just insane how many bullets were shot at Dr. Weiss. They unloaded every single bullet into this man. 61 bullets into him. I mean, that's overkill. That's the definition of overkill. I mean, what are your thoughts about it, Opa?
Well, it sure kind of looks like a pretty good comparison between Huey Long and the Kennedy assassination. They were trying to pin it on somebody else.
Have you ever heard of Huey Long?
Yeah, I did, but I really, was when I was a kid, and I really wasn't interested in that kind of stuff.
Well, you guys let me know at home what you think down in the comments. Also, we're going to be talking more about it with Shay, who's an expert on the Huey Long and Dr. Weiss story, on Discord. So after this show at 7:45, we're going to go meet on Discord like every week, and we'll talk more about this fascinating case. So for this next clip, are cats aliens? So check this out.
Hello?
Oh, you're so oh, you're so cute. Yes, you are. I know you, sir. No, I know you, sir.
That's right.
Can you hold on?
No. Okay. Okay. You want some treats?
Let me hear a meow.
You're not supposed to be there. Yeah.
This is what happens to bad kitties.
Guess what?
You, that's what.
10,000 years of evolution and this pathetic.
Oh, yeah? Huh. Well, who's in the cave? Hey, Gator. Huh. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, get back into that water where you belong. Hey, Bear, I don't want to have to tell you again. Get the hell out of here, all right? Get out of here, you son of a... Get out of here!
So, are cats aliens? I think it's funny because sometimes a human voice comes out of them. And I've heard it once or twice, but never on a consistent basis. Now, we're going to be playing this week's Skiba News Nation Hotline voicemails that you guys submitted. So, let's go ahead and play these.
Brother Jeremiah, your dad, Rob, changed my life, showing me the truth about the Earth's cosmology. I learned that the Father's not far away. He's very close and very findable. He's just above us. I love you and your mama. And I love your dad. And I pray blessings and love upon you and your family. And strength and encouragement. In Jesus' name. Love you.
I texted him.
What's up, Jeremiah? It's Nemo, or Savage Warrior of Yahuwah. Love what y'all do and continue to seek out the truth.
Hey, Jeremiah. I just wanted to say that what you guys do means the world to me. I really enjoy your History's Mysteries, and Jake, love what you're doing, and I love Opa's Corner. My whole family sits down, we watch Opa's Corner, we watch the whole show, and I just wanted to tell you guys, thank you for seeking truth, And Jeremiah, thank you for continuing your dad's amazing legacy. Have a great day, fellas. Shalom.
So you can call this number right here, 214-617-3330, and leave us a voicemail. And I appreciate everybody who left the voicemail this week. If you want to leave us a voicemail, call us and leave it. We can discuss show topics, whatever you guys want to talk about, whatever you guys want to say, feel free to say it on our hotline. So that's all I got for History's Mysteries. Oh. Thank you, Jake, for another great current news and memes as always. Opa, thank you for another great Opa's Corner. I hope you guys enjoyed today's History's Mysteries and today's episode as a whole. Stay awake, not woke, subscribe, and stay tuned. If you like what we do here on Skiba News Nation, please like and subscribe, and also share with others so that we can grow the biggest truth-seeking community on the internet. Huge shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. We couldn't do this show without you, so I just wanted to say thank you. And if you want to help support us, go to patreon.com/Skiba News Nation.